Jed got it done. I said on this podcast that when we did our New Year's resolutions, I said, if Jed can somehow, this was just a week ago, before the trade, I said, if somehow Jed can pull off getting a starting pitcher and a legit position player bat, that I will not question him ever again in 2026. 2026 is his year. And lo and behold, it took him less than a week. He must have been listening to the podcast, and he was like, oh my goodness. Stuckey laid it down on the line. He drew a line in the sand, and I have to meet that before Cubs convention. Jed, congratulations. I will not question you the rest of 2026.
I love it. I love it. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people owe Jed, and honestly, Rick gets an apology here. Like, it wasn't about them doing something on December 1st. It wasn't about them doing something by December 20th. It was about them doing something before opening day. And I said that before a lot of these podcasts. It's like there's no deadline here besides opening day. And like you said, Luke, in 1 week, a big time starter and a big time bat, you know? And I mean, like, but it's all negotiation. It's all back and forth. You know, when you're trading, it's a negotiation. Everything's a negotiation. Nobody just like, I want Bregman, here's my first offer, and it's a done deal. It doesn't happen that way. It's baseball, but it's also a business, you know? So I really do hope that, you know, listen, you could think of what you want about Ricketts. You could think what you want about Jed, but in this offseason and in these moments, I think they've nailed it, and I give them both credit. And again, maybe, you know, a Twitterverse isn't, they're not GMs and presidents for a reason, right? Let's let the big dogs do what they do. And I could not be happier with the way this offseason has gone so far.
Let's get an early Toyota Super Chat in here from Shane Newbanks, who says, Jed did not want any of the Stuckey smoke. I'm on board with that one. And also, speaking of the chat, yeah, Godfather CHGO, you're the true test today. You're the true test.
Yes.
I knew if I kept the heat on Ricketts, he eventually would crack. I will lay off for a while, but I will be watching.
Yes.
Wow.
There it is.
That's big.
Wow. Because I was going to say, if you're still cynical, or even a little bit cynical, Godfather, I was starting to worry it was a bit. But no. Yeah. You were a measured Cubs fan who just was frustrated. Mm-hmm. And here's what I will say, is that the things that were pissing me off about this offseason was simply that when we talk about the Chicago Cubs and we talk about them being interested in, checking in on, engaged in talks with, all I asked for on this show, and I was with you when I did this show, was all I wanted the Chicago Cubs to show was conviction, right? What's the plan? Go out there and execute it because you are the Chicago Cubs. Clearly, Edward Cabrera and Alex Bregman have been on the radar for quite some time, and the quest is over, Jed. You've nailed both of them. 2 off seasons, or if Edward Cabrera, I guess, is a regular season and an off season. They almost got him in a trade or at least they tried to via trade last year. The 2 guys that they have gone out and identified as guys that can help them win baseball games, they went out and got them. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, let's do some real talk, right? I still think Kyle Tucker is a better hitter than Alex Bregman. Just real talk. I'm going to say that right now. But maybe Alex Bregman is a better player than Kyle Tucker is a hitter. And that's something that the Chicago Cubs value. The other part about it that I was bemoaning all offseason, that I just didn't understand why the Cubs were just going to sit on their hands in the 4th year of this cycle. And I've been saying this since 2022. Jed began from Dansby Swanson on to put together a team that was going to be competitive. I believe Jed thinks about these things in 3 to 4 year cycles. This was the 4th year in a cycle when they just won 92 games and won a division round game. So I was getting frustrated that I was saying, you can't be telling me that they're not going to do anything when they've built it up to this particular place, right? So that has come to fruition, right? The Chicago Cubs, I'm not going to say are super serious, but they're serious enough that's got me really, really, really excited. And now with Bregman in the fold, you can start opening up the possibility of not just, because next year, a lot of money coming off the books. Could be a transition year. They're at least opening up the possibility to extend that cycle into an Act 2 with a young core of players, with a player like Bregman. I applaud Jed. The deferrals, Tom.
Yes.
Congratulations, man. I'm so happy as a Cubs fan. And look, like, we're critical, right? We want stuff. We get worried. We get frustrated. We know we want them to attack the offseason. Well, how it is, and Justin, to your point, right? They patiently got the deal done for the players that they wanted, Luke. And that's what I can live with. If they have a plan and go out and get the guys that they want, I can live with that. They're not just dealing with whatever's left over in the fridge. You know what I'm saying? And I applaud Jed and Tom for doing that.
And maybe maybe Bregman's not a better player than Kyle Tucker, but let's acknowledge that he might be a better fit than Kyle Tucker. And that can be something that's actually true in baseball, right? Like that can actually happen. And this is a player who really wanted to be a Cub. There was no hesitation. He wanted to be a Cub a year ago, and they didn't meet the price. And I saw it was Patrick Mooney in The Athletic, my old teammate. He brought up the point that in April last year, there was a Cubs player that came off the field after a big Cubs win who went and said to a reporter, unprovoked, imagine how good we'd be with Bregman right now. This is a message to the team. This is the type of message that they needed to see. Had the Cubs just done nothing this offseason and said the kids can play and we're going to go with a lot of questions in the rotation, that would have been the wrong message to a 92-win team, okay? Instead, the Cubs have gone out and said we've solidified the rotation. We've gone and spent the money to give you what we think is the right veteran player for this team. We've given you depth. We've given you hope. And we've given you the tools to go do this with our manager.